What is up, guys? It is Nick, and welcome to the very first video of the channel. I'll be trying to release one video per day, detailing my favorite bet of the day, the next day, or just an upcoming bet in general. Whether it be like, tennis, football, basketball, hockey, soccer, anything. Could be a few days in advance, whatever. Get videos out at least once a day. In today's video, as you could tell from the title, we're going to be previewing essentially the preview of the Pac-12 championship game between the number 3 ranked Oregon Ducks and the number 24 ranked Utah Utes. The line is currently set at Utah -3 and the over-under at 59. The clash in Salt Lake City should see no real weather concerns. There is a chance of rain expected early in the day, but little to no chance to see any during game time. This is all with the expectation that weathermen are notoriously wrong, and so hopefully this holds and that ends up being the weather for the day. Temperatures are in the 40s around kickoff before heading into the 30s as the game progresses. I don't expect it to be much of an issue, and I don't expect the rain to mess with field conditions at all. Travis Dye, the running back for Oregon, does not play with gloves and has stated that he does not want to play with gloves. So he could be the one issue, but I really don't think it's going to be cold enough to really be a factor. Dye and Oregon play in Eugene, Oregon, so it's, cold up there. They should be used to it. Speaking of running backs, though, the team's rushing attacks are the keys to the game. Oregon offensively ranks 11th in 227.4 rushing yards per game. They average 5.5 yards per attempt, which is good for 6th nationally, and they're second in the nation in rushing touchdowns with 31. Over on the Utah side, a little bit worse than the Ducks. They average 215.5 yards per game, which is 18th nationally, and 5.86 yards per rush, which is 4th in the nation, better than the Ducks. They're 9th in rushing touchdowns. Touchdowns, notoriously a bit noisy depending on rushing or passing, but both are ranked in the top 10, and that was kind of the key point of that. The units trying to stop these two prolific rush offenses are the defenses, obviously. Oregon's defense gets the slight nod as the better defense. They rank about in the mid-20s against the run in terms of yards per game and attempt. Utah ranks in the mid-30s per rushing attempt and in the late 40s per yards per game. So worse than Oregon. The number difference is a little bit more drastic than the actual yards that they allow, but not still Oregon. Enough of the numbers, though. We'll move on to a little bit of a breakdown here. I think it's fairly common to have the view that Oregon is lucky to be 9-1, then they're overrated by the College Football Playoff Committee, just simply based on their one win against Ohio State. Now, of the teams contending for the College Football Playoff, the win by Oregon is by far the best win. It's at Ohio State against a top 4 team in the playoff committee's eye. It's their only loss, and it was in Ohio State. As someone who's gone to a lot of Notre Dame games, I know people could argue Cincinnati at Notre Dame. Notre Dame's atmosphere nowhere near the same as going to like an Ohio State or going to Michigan or something like that. Notre Dame's home field advantage is mediocre compared to those teams. As someone who's gone to a lot of college football games and gone to a lot of Notre Dame games, their home field advantage, while they do win a lot at home, their stats at home are very good. It's not all really based. Their home field advantage in terms of their fans is really not that intimidating, in my opinion. I personally don't believe Oregon is overrated. I think they're probably fairly rated. Maybe they should be 5 or 6, maybe at the worst. But I think they're better than Michigan, better than Michigan State, better than everybody ranked below. And so your argument is that Cincinnati and Ohio State are better. If you look at the ESPN's FPI and College Football Playoff Predictor, the Playoff Predictor takes into account past committee decisions, past committee choices, and stuff like that on teams. Oregon should be nowhere near the top 4. But as ESPN continues to publish articles on this, they said this year feels a little bit different for this Oregon team, for the committee, with that win over Ohio State and just where they've ranked them. And so the playoff predictor gives them just a 7% chance to make the playoff. And it gives them just a 40-some% chance if they win out. You can believe whatever you want about Oregon, But I believe the perception that they're a bit overrated and they're lucky to be 9-1 is baked into the line of +3 Oregon and +135 on the money line. But when Oregon is talked about in the playoff sense, they're talked about the best of the best. They're talked about against Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, Cincinnati, all of these high-quality teams. And I think it's unfair to then bake that into, your decision to bet Utah against them. That's just my opinion. But I think you're comparing apples to oranges. Utah's not a top upper echelon, top 15, top 20 team even. I know they're ranked 24th, but I think if you take them out, even since Cam Rising took over for Charlie Brewer, they've been way better. But you throw them in the SEC or throw them in the Big 10 or throw them in the Big 12. I'm not sure they're waltzing to a top 24 ranking even with Cam Rising. I am one that thinks Oregon is a quality team out of the Pac-12, but I'm not a huge fan of the rest of the teams in the Pac-12 in terms of being like high-octane quality teams. Like a Penn State that's unranked. I think Penn State takes care of Utah in a game. Now, I think Oregon takes care of Penn State, so that should lead you to where we're going to go with this bet. But I think it's I think the line is just off. I just think it's too off in my opinion, because I would favor Oregon by 3 maybe on the road here at Utah, which would make them about a 9-point favorite at home. Maybe a little wide on my part, but I don't think Oregon should be any worse than a pick'em in this football game, and they're +3 currently. This whole entire game is going to essentially come down to the quarterback play of Anthony Brown. Oregon is better, in my opinion, in every area of this field except when Anthony Brown doesn't play good quarterback play. It's been a roller coaster ride for Anthony Brown this year. He's been elite at times, and then he has been world's worst quarterback at others. Unable to complete simple passes, unable to push the ball. He's been unable to push the ball down the field consistently all year. That's been the Achilles heel for Oregon. If they could push the ball down the field, they would hang 50 points on everybody, because if Anthony Brown could hit receivers down the field, they couldn't load the box against this team that wants to run it so much. With all this being said about Anthony Brown, he did make the top 20 as one of the nation's best quarterbacks for the Davey O'Brien Award. Now, you can say it's because of record, but Stetson Bennett not on that list. Peyton Thorne not on that list. Cade McNamara not on that list. Obviously, the Notre Dame quarterbacks aren't on that list because I don't know what they're doing over there. But those guys aren't on that list. Anthony Brown made that list. Now, do I think Anthony Brown is some elite superstar quarterback? No. He's not a prolific passer. But what he does do is he rushes the ball very well for a quarterback. He's not your flashy Lamar Jackson type quarterback rusher. He's more of your Cam Newton, strong, built to take the hit, wants to run you over a bit, and is going to fight for those extra yards. The question will be, can Anthony Brown keep calm? I'll give him the pass for the monsoon in Washington, but he's been way better. He looked very good against Washington State. He looked very good against Colorado. So the question will be, what Anthony Brown do we get? Do we get the one against Washington State, or are we going to get the Anthony Brown we saw against Stanford? It's just a question. Can he be consistent? Can he keep calm, come out, and play a quality game? And I think he does. I think these last few games have helped him settle in. He was not good in the monsoon, but he was fairly okay at what he was trying to do in that Washington game. Moving on to the second most important player in this game, and it's Kayvon Thibodeaux, the number 1 pick in the NFL draft, I expect. Superstar rush end for Oregon. But in this game, his job will be more than just to rush Cam Rising. It'll be interesting to see how they play him against the run. He can really help his draft stock with a really good game stopping the rushing attack of Utah. So it'll be interesting if they run away from him, double and run at him, or just kind of double and run like away and just take him out of the game. It'll be interesting, but it'll be interesting for Oregon. Can you force, and it'll be interesting for both teams, can you force the other team into long seconds and long third downs where you can unleash a Kayvon Thibodeaux to rush Cam Rising? And so it'll be interesting on that end. I think Noah Sewell is also a big player for Oregon, the linebacker. See if he can disrupt running downhill to stop some of these rushing attempts. I also think for Utah, this game is meaningless. Now, I don't always expect college coaches to know this or act like they care about stuff like this, but they should not be tipping their hand. They should not be running all of their disguised blitzes, all their disguised coverages. They should save those for the Pac-12 championship game, because assuming they beat Colorado next week, who is abysmal and 3-7, they're in the Pac-12 championship game, and Utah's final goal this whole time has always been the Rose Bowl. They can't make the playoff, obviously, and so the Rose Bowl is their goal, and they can achieve that goal by not having to show everything against Oregon, win or lose. Just take care of business against Colorado. Oregon, on the other hand, has been in the playoffs since they lost to Stanford, so it's just another game where they're going to have to win. There is no other option. You lose, you're out of the playoff. And then their goal becomes the Pac-12 championship game and then the Rose Bowl. Like I said, going to be taking Oregon plus 135 on the money line. Plus 3 is the safer option. I don't have any problem with that. I just like the plus 135, and I think Oregon wins outright. And also with the plus 3, though, something I haven't heard talked about much this year, the new overtime rules, if it gets to that point, you holding a plus 3 ticket, you got to feel good. The only way you're losing that game is with a pick 6 on a 2-point conversion when your team went first or when the other team went first and converted. If you go first and you don't convert and throw that pick 6, you still win because that ends the game. The other team doesn't have to come out and score because they'll just come out and kneel the 2-point, avoid like turning it over or anything like that. So that's not something you should consider, but it's another out to cash a ticket, which is always good. We take those. But yes, like I said, my official bet for this game is Oregon money line plus 135. I think the under probably hits in this game, but I don't want any part of the total in this game. Oregon money line plus 135. I think Anthony Brown comes out, rushes for 100 yards. Travis Dye gets 100, and Oregon puts a handful of points on Utah and is able to stop them enough times to get this win. I think there will be some longer possessions, which is why I think the under, but I'm not sure these teams get a whole lot of stops. So that's kind of where I'm at. But Oregon plus 135 on the money line is the bet for this video. So I appreciate y'all listening to my very first video. Let me know if you got any critiques, suggestions, things that I should do different, thoughts on the graphics, thoughts on anything and everything. I'm more than happy to hear the suggestions. Hopefully I'll be back to you guys tomorrow breaking down Baylor and Kansas State. I have a bet for that game. And so I hope to see you guys there in the morning. Try to get this one out early enough tonight, maybe 10 or 11 p.m. is what I'm going to guess. And so I hope to see you guys in future videos. Thanks for watching. Peace.